everyone. Today we're going to talk about layer masks for Project 2, the Composite Image Project. Masking layers is a valuable compositing technique for combining multiple photos into a single image. You can add a layer mask to hide portions of the layer and reveal the layers below. As we talked about in class, non-destructive editing, layer masks are non-destructive, meaning you can go back and re-edit the masks later without losing the pixels that they hide. So we're not using the delete button here because just pressing delete would actually remove those pixels and it would be destructive. In the layers panel, you can see here, I actually already have a mask done on my flower copy layer. The layer mask appears as an additional thumbnail to the right of the layer thumbnail. So it's this black and white image. This thumbnail represents the grayscale channel that is created when you add the layer mask to the selected layer. This means if you paint in black, it's going to hide. The areas that you paint in white are going to be visible. So you can see that the area where the flower is that's white on my mask is what's showing through. And if you paint in shades of gray, it's going to do various levels of transparency. You'll also see here that there's a little link between the two. By default, a layer is linked to its layer mask. And you can see that with the little link icon between the thumbnails. This lets the layer and the mask move together in the image when you have the move tool selected. So you can see the mask does move with my flower. If you are wanting to unlink them to be able to move kind of the image around in your mask, all you have to do is come over, click the link between the two, and then now you can move whichever independently. I can move just the mask, or I can move just the image depending on which one I have selected. Once I've made my edits and I want to relink them, all you have to do is come back between the two of them and click, and the link is back, and now you can move them together. So let's talk about how to create these masks, and I'm going to turn off these layers and just bring up the flower. Just for confusion purposes, I'm going to delete the flower copy layer and just work with the layer flower. So first thing you can do this multiple different ways to create layer masks. As you remember when you were creating the photo restoration and colorizations, you did paint in masks on the fill layer. You can do that. Or if you're working with an image kind of like this, where the color you're selecting is quite dramatically different from the background, you can come in with your quick selection tool, or any of your selection tools really, depending on the shape. I'm going to go with the quick selection tool. I'm going to increase the selector. And then I'm going to come in and just grab my flower. Did a really nice quick job because it is really different from the background. Once you see the running ants and you've made a selection, you can come over down here to the bottom of your layers panel, and right between the FX and the fill adjustment layers is the add a layer mask. It looks like a little white sheet of paper with a black circle in it. Once you click that, it'll auto generate the mask based on your selection. You can come in now with your paintbrush, and depending on whatever color you have set as your foreground color down here at the bottom of your toolbar is going to be the color that you paint. So right now, if I'm painting in black, it's going to remove and hide. Or if I come in and paint white, it'll reveal that image. So I can actually come in and edit that mask. To hide that mask, you can hold Shift and click, and it'll put a red X over the mask thumbnail in the layers panel, and it means it's disabled. So it's appearing without your mask. All you have to do is press Shift and click again, and it'll then apply it. So that's a really great way to toggle between what you're masking and your mask. So another way that you can do this is you can actually select your mask. I'm going to start over. So this is how you can delete a mask actually. I'm going to select that mask thumbnail. I know that it's selected because of the little white lines, kind of boxing it in. Come down here to the trash can and delete. Now what I can do if I wanted to kind of paint in that mask, I can come down to the bottom without making any selection. Nothing's selected here on my layer. So I'm going to come down and add a layer mask. And as you can see, it's white, so everything's being revealed. So I can actually come in with black, so changing this over to black, and I can paint in my mask. So this is another slower way that you can do this. It might be better for a smaller image. You can change the different brush sizes to kind of help you out. But this is a great alternative and a non-destructive alternative to just using the eraser. Because if you're using the eraser, you can get the same effect, but you can't come back in and edit. Same thing with if you make a selection and you press the delete button. So a great thing to think about is instead of pressing delete or the erase, go for add a layer mask. So another great thing about Photoshop is if you are starting to do the eraser, for example, let me actually delete this mask and I will show you. If I'm trying to take my eraser directly onto my original image, you'll actually see that it says no, a little circle with a line through it. And then it tells you, hey, things have to be rasterized. If you're starting to get a whole bunch of pop-ups, that's Photoshop telling you that you're probably doing something wrong or it's going to be destructive. Another thing would be if I made my selection, or let me delete that and select just the background. And I press delete. I'm getting pop-ups, so that's meaning I'm probably doing something wrong. So every time you've made a selection, instead of pressing delete or going straight for your eraser, you would just make sure that you have that specific layer selected and go down to your add a layer mask instead of pressing delete. Now, if you've done this, don't worry. If you wanted to just see the flower, all you need to do is invert your layer mask. So you can do that doing Control or Command I with your layer mask selected, and it inverts your mask, and so now you have just the flower visible. Another thing that you can do, and I just undid and I went back out, I'm going to deselect. I'm going to select my flower again. You'll notice at the top when you have selection tools and you're making a selection that you'll see that it says select and mask. This is a great new thing that Adobe rolled out that kind of lets you have a little bit more control of your mask instead of it just being a harsh line. So if you click select and mask, you'll kind of get a preview of what's going to happen before you apply your mask. Here you can do all kinds of things like shifting the edge, and I'm going to make it really dramatic so you can see it. It's kind of being a little slow. There it is. I'll kind of make it come out. So you can see that you can actually shift that edge in by going negative, or you can take it outwards by going positive. So if you bring it in just a little bit, it kind of neatens your selection. I'm going to add a little bit of a feather and shift the edge in a little bit just so it has kind of a little bit of a blend. That feather is that soft edge. It kind of like lowers the opacity and kind of gives it a little bit of a blur, so it lets you have a little bit more seamless blending. Be careful with your feather though, because you can go a little too overboard and it does look a little fuzzy and blurry. You can smooth your selection as well. So once you've made your edits, you can say okay. And it looks like nothing happened here, but I assure you it did. So now, after you've done your select and mask, if you add that layer mask, those edits that you just did in the select and mask will be applied. So that is how you add layer masks and edit them for project 2. Don't forget, after you do make a mask, you can duplicate it as well. Just a kind of quick last minute tip. If you hold down Option and click your mask, you can drag it to other layers. Unlink so you can kind of see. I'm going to move just my text around in the mask of the flower. So that's how you can reuse masks as well. And that is all for layer masks for project 2.